Okay, this doesn't have a title. If you drive distances, you've had days like this. Mostly cloud, rare sun poking through south. I drive west. Like a rumor almost out of hearing. Then more cloud, a little rain, cloud and downpour. So the fastest wipers can't cope. Cloud and more little rain. Overhead, clouds and charcoal, gray, black, low, and sun somewhere ahead and left at the horizon. Not enough cloud to seal the horizon or go on and on beyond it, or just enough gap to see there is something else somewhere, unclouded humans imaginable, and rain, not little, but steady, reliable. What you'd order for your garden if you could, or for your kids to play in after a long day inside. And still sun, setting but powerful in the rain. I begin to look. It's swiveling as much as I can. Front, left, right, rear view of road and cars. And there, in the driver's side mirror, a fat strip of rainbow, receding. Small fragment, surely, of what eastward drivers see before them, unreflected, so they may feel they are getting closer. I know about that, but I have what I have. Small, bright, fleeting, reflected, enough.
Bob, why is he not moving on the screen? I'm muted.
I'm restful, calm. This poem is about a glass artwork.
No,
dressed
Bob,
with shawl.
What I think, she asked you why you weren't moving on the screen. Your movement is going back and forth because the internet is just kind of freezing. You don't have that great of a signal there. So it just is what it is. At least we can hear you. And we can see you.
Okay.
But sometimes your face freezes. That's all.
Okay. This artwork is by Karen Lamonte in the Corning Museum of Glass. I ain't got nobody. White dress, white shawl, all of white glass. No one inside. Nakedness is a relief for the clothing. See how it leans back on air, just 2 or 3 inches out of plumb. If the dress had hands, they are held out wide. If the dress had a mouth, it is grinning, belting out a song, the great song of emptiness. This is a Woodstock poem about one of my favorite things when we can be there is the Sunday chamber music series in the shed, which is partially open to the outside. And so I called the poem Partially Chambered Music. I choose to skip my nap for chamber music, but the nap has its will too. When my eyes close and chin slips slowly onto my chest, won't people be impressed with my intense focus? Who knows? How long does my chin stay down? I don't keep time when I'm focusing. Others my age, almost all of us are afternoon napping age, use the relative peace of Mozart to rest up for Shostakovich's vehemence. I'm just musical enough to know that Brahms, who we'll get to after the break, is in the middle, taking something he needs from both ends. We're all human here, even the dead composers. The mid-career players probably don't nap yet, but when they do, they'll find out how it will help them listen. Long ago, 40 years ago or so, on a 1st December Friday, I sat, shirt-sleeved, on my porch on the best street for port sitting in the Heights. I must have gotten home before my kids, or maybe they visited their mother, so I was free to watch the people walking by in shorts and shirt sleeves on what might have been the last warm day till May. The low sun worked its way through leafless branches, and the unneeded breeze promised to be back next summer. I was happy, so I probably had a beer and must have been happy with my poem on the worksheet for that night's poetry forum. There would have been other good poems too, none of which would use the phrases global warming or climate change on that lucky, lovely December Friday. Helping my children clean out their mother's apartment. Oh, they are ruthless. She had kept everything. They keep poetry, her little bits of jewelry, the few papers needed to make her death official. Steve pulls an armful of everything out of the mountain in the bedroom, carries it down the narrow path between more mountains to Katie, who finds very little to save, and then begs everything else for me, and I carry it down the hall and force it down the chute. Stuff fades before my eyes. Without its value, which is always only a story, anything is nothing. Peg would have told you where she got it, for how much, what it reminded her of, her plans for it, but Peg is a little bit ahead of those things in goneness, though she won't lose her stories yet. Steve remembers doing this for his mother before, and Katie says 2 or 3 times, this mess can only be a few months old. My children make one of my biggest stories. Peg can't be divorced from her part of it. Old couple in a supermarket for M. Not us. We usually shop separately. These two were older than us by 10 years or so, dressed a little too warmly for the fall day, but seemed happy to be together, even holding hands. And I thought, that's good. We should do that sometimes. They had to separate around a display island. And when they came back together, he threw his arm stiffly around her waist, relearning an old move, as if embarrassed either to control or need. And then it hit. One of them has dementia, but which? You've probably forgotten this name by now. The title is Timothy Kaufman in California, and I will read the note first. According to the New York Times, Timothy Kaufman, a 66-year-old black man, was murdered in Manhattan on March 20th, 2017, allegedly by a 28-year-old white supremacist who had traveled from Baltimore to kill black men. The alleged murderer is said to have expressed regret that he didn't choose a younger victim. Timothy Kaufman had wished on Twitter that he might someday visit California. So again, the title, Timothy Kaufman in California. He staggers off the bus with cramps, and for forever, that is all there is. No time to part friends from people on the bus, or to think that he knew Shari Headley would not meet him. He gets his bag and stands tall as he can, stretching out the cramps until walking at least hurts less than standing, then less some more, and then he's back in time, and there are palm trees, and more sun than there ever was in Manhattan, and everything is California. He begins to walk for real. Without cramps, his legs still work, and he is thousands of miles of sitting to walk off. Winter here too, but only California winter. He is glad he stuffed his coat into his bag. He sees a newspaper headline about some racial killing in New York and is sad for a minute, but he is here to enjoy. He knows where to find a room, and his phone map will take him past the piece of street mural he's come all this way to see. Abraham Obama, Barack's face inside Lincoln's hair and beard. Then he'll find a Carl's Jr. and tomorrow, Grauman's Chinese Theater. Two small ones and a longer one, and then I'm done. The hour after I die, I will begin to cool. Microorganisms will have their turn. I will feel no fear. Some people will grieve. Some will not have learned that they are going to, quote, the kind of enemies a man should have, unquote. If I find myself in heaven or hell or anywhere, I will be surprised. But right now I have to walk the dog. The quote is something that Graham Greene said of Ford Madox Ford, that he had the kind of enemies a man should have. Snow in the dishes. It's easy for us to get cut off here. Snow in the dishes. So we've no TV, web, or email. My wife and I pet the dog, walk him, throw him a few toys. NPR tells her what's happening out there. The mail informs me how it was a few days ago, and Mozart gives us how it always can be. It's all good. And my sister Pat, I don't know if Kathy's here, will remember much of this. Things fathers did. They taught their sons to fight. Mine said, don't start it, but fight back. And also, if you jump by more than one, pick the biggest guy and pound him. If the house was warm in the winter, a father had shoveled coal. They made each child special. I was his son, Pat, his redhead, Kathy, his baby. They expected a lot, not always victory, not perfection, but our best. The marking period after Roger Herman got a perfect report card, I was told my teacher said I should do better than Roger. Some must have proudly sent their sons to Vietnam. My father told my mother, no, if they draft him, he'll have to go, but he doesn't have to volunteer. Often they made their first son junior. Go look at the wall. And I signed this poem, Robert E. McDonough Jr. Thank you.
Good job, Robert.
Bob, you were definitely on YouTube. I mean, on Facebook. YouTube, I don't know. Facebook, I was tracking it. It's got about a 3-second delay. And Kathy is here, by the way.
But I was moving.
Yeah, a little bit. You just took a glass of water on YouTube, so it tells you what the lag is.
Okay.
That wasn't water.
So who is going next?
I can go next.
Okay. So I am gonna have to spotlight you. There you are. And I'll have to do something here.
Okay.
It should work, but it's still showing Bob for some reason.
Well, shows me, I don't know.
On Facebook?
No, I'm on Zoom.
Yeah.
I see
You
you.
are. It was the delay. That was all.
Okay.
It was the delay.
Okay. Just to explain a couple things for the non-Mayapple Valletta people. This is a special week for us, not quite as special as usual. It's a place where inspiration, imagination, and great support happen. So this is a poem from last year. As you drive up from the Valletta and around town, and then you go up to the Buddhist monastery, there's something that happens to anything outside the world. You are not in the world, you are in definitely this magical place. So this is from last year. Can you hear me now? It isn't just distance that affects communication. Time must move more slowly in these dog days, so messages take their time to ping across the miles. There's no sense of urgency implicit in any voicemail. But it's really just that the rental car isn't set up for phone or text. The distractions are greener, and the roads wind back and forth, measuring miles by switchbacks and other turns. Any buzz or ringtone is limited to birds and insects and hustled away by chipmunks and squirrels. Here words surge into valleys and swoop up the mountain, get tangled in trees, and stop to gaze at deer. I have a tendency to write poems to thank people. So this is one I wrote earlier, and it refers back to when we were in Michigan, to my Olean friends, Southern Tier friends, and of course, these people. A League of Poets. From Saginaw to the Catskills, the Tonawondas to Allegheny, the Wabash and Maumee to Cheektowaga, my tribe of poets and writers sustain me. Mornings, words and images are shared in mutual exchanges without risk. Afternoons in study, evenings filled with orations to the muses, and late nights softened by gratitude. We gather in small spaces, isolated from the outer world, but addressing it in our inner selves, secure in our common purpose, engrossed in the alchemy of friendships and images made gold. I'm going to take you back kind of into my adolescence in the next few poems. Places where I used to live. Driving by. Some days I just need to drive by. Try to imagine new family and rooms that were ours for so long, spotting toys littering the yard and strange cars in the drive. I can still hear the squeak of certain stairs, my room at the top with its cork ceiling, my protest against wood paneling, the side dormer where my desk fit, the window which caught the calls of friends to come out and play, the basement with its original wall-beamed low ceiling, where we learned to duck, the front porch where I slept hot summer nights. We moved the kitchen from back to side to keep the pipes from freezing, but this floor slanted down too, so the jello never set evenly. The dining room offering a new window view of the neighbor on the other side. This rotation of rooms put Dad and his piles of papers away from visitors' eyes, reams of multi-carbon missives and newspaper clippings he never did organize. We had to tiptoe past with a slow hula hoop dance to avoid landslides. What have they done since inside those walls? Traversing the village. It seemed a larger landscape back then, a mere block for adventure, around one corner to the next, an approved square journey with no street crossings. As we aged, got bolder, we actually preferred shortcuts, imitating crows who fly straight past, finding our way through parking lots, and sometimes sneaking through backyards. Sushing the neighborhood dogs, darting past lights that burst from timers, hopping a fence or two, and avoiding the darkened porch that hid the watchful eye of a senior citizen. We were confident this was our world, a familiar trek ours alone, not any map any car could trace. Proud of our hometown and how well we knew its secret geography. If anybody knows a black walnut tree, they're wonderful and they're horrible. This is called walnut harvest. All the other yards had maples and chestnuts, while ours had a towering black walnut tree. Every 2 years, a full crop of citrusy smelling husks were ankle breakers if left uncollected. We learned quickly to harvest our bounty before those lime green orbs broke open, oozing a deep black ink that soaked through everything and seeped through gloves, marking Mom's fingers and palms with its stubborn stain. This poem kind of goes back to my whole collection of Catholic school poems. If you don't know about pagan babies, every Catholic school kid had to bring in change, you know, and every $5 or $10 you took care of a pagan baby, which meant any baby from Africa or Asia. So, and the nuns are strict about it. So this is called Pennywise. Way before Carmen Sandiego, Catholic school kids didn't learn about global geography or ozone layers, barely were warned about littering or the dangerous proliferation of plastics. We scrounged for banned bottles and cans for precious pennies for pagan babies in unknown faraway lands and made the smallest contributions to saving the planet in our furthest away futures. So kind of leaving nostalgia, perhaps, or going deeper into it, this is life lived backwards. Growing older seems to give license to recreating the past with memories that never happened, extrapolating from photographs never taken, perhaps filling in blanks with whimsy beyond wishful thinking, a new library of what should have beens, might be's, and if onlys. I read a story by Murakami about this aunt who apparently was haunting him. And it's probably one of my very favorite stories by him. So I took a quote from the story. Finally, there's a type whose names fade before they even die. So this poem is called Sepia. Among the photographs of people long lost, unnamed by pencil or year, they could have been scrawled on the back, clustered on porches or on studio chairs, hoping for formally informal, young men uncomfortable in their skin stand near visions of their future selves. Mustachioed uncles, hats set on their working men's heads. Daughters close to the bottom of the frame, dressed in white, mirrors of their mother's past. All unsmiling, sobered spirits awaiting the flash too long in the sun. Off to the side, unpaired women, poor aunts in their own state of namelessness, bleached shadows fading over years. "45 years later, and Patricia and Leslie helped me change this poem from when I showed it down on Helen's porch. I think I like it better. I definitely like the ending better, so we'll see. 45 years later. I wish I had spent more hours in the library at one of those long tables with the green shaded banker's lamps, surrounded by the weight and smell of books, instead of all nights cramming. I wish there'd been more time to enjoy novelists and poets we read with one another. Neruda, de Unamuno, Kafka, and Garcia Marquez. I wish I had paid closer attention in mythology classes, raised more questions, risked offering my own voice in Latin American lit. I wish I had tried harder to stay in touch with my World War history study group, who laughed hardest before the tests and over cheap beer in dark places after. I wish I had crossed to other dorms, sought out friends outside of classes, the larger spaces of campus. I wish I had spent more time with my college best friend and realized earlier that we shared cancer before she died. So we moved last year, right before Woodstock. And so this is a poem about two different places. It's called At the Edge of the Woods. We found our home, set down deep in sturdy roots, felt secure in its walls for 34 years at the edge of the woods. Accepted its solace and warmth as we marked other people's tragedies as well as our own, all part of growing older together. What once was quaint and rustic to our younger legs is too much of a challenge. Stairs have become demanding, the front entrance daunting, winter so hard and confining. Safety matters now more than character. The quirks of the old place we delighted in decades ago are outweighed by aging's realities. Part 2. The blankness of these walls should hold promises, a challenge to redefine ourselves in our older years of practicality, a place to ease into with fewer flaws and debts, different responsibilities for our health, opportunity to shed the mass of accumulation living in one place imposed on us, shrugging off baggage we'd never accounted for. Yes, the trees are fewer here, and the birds chased off by new construction and flocks of crows, but we have proven to be successful nesters. I realized when I was putting this together, I have a lot of bird poems. It may be residual channeling from Helen in her bird collection. And this poem started off in Woodstock, then came home. Bird watching. Last year, cardinals picked berries and whistled. Now robins dart in branches. Woodpeckers poke at our trees. Finches and sparrows avoid the caw and swoop of ever-threatening jays. Chickadees wallow in driveway dirt. A rare bluebird inspects the home a neighbor built. The grayness of the morning dove's call alerts us to dawn. A red-tailed hawk floats in hunt. There used to be egrets down the road, but new housing develops and pushed them out. All this as we wait in vain for scarlet tanagers to reappear, the last one here stalked by a neighbor's cat and left on our doorstep. This is 4th of July, 5th of July actually. Two different places in our outside our house. It's called Sacrifices. For months, we kept watch over one nest perched safely in a nook of the garage roof. Perhaps the barrage of fireworks brought it down, or a curious predator. Some of the emptiness scattered in the driveway, the circle of its construction, a mystery of avian science. The other nest, we discovered the exact same day, away from prying eyes, except for the monthly gas meter reading. Inside, 4 eggs cuddled, abandoned by the mother who laid them there. After the heat of the day and brief hours before lightning lit the sky again, I sat among fireflies, waiting for clouds to clear, just to see the moon. Helen, it's still not a haiku. This is, I debated about reading this, but the reaction from Patricia and Leslie was so strong that I have to. It's called Betrayal. And they said it's an extremely creepy poem, so I'm warning you. Silently you slither, waiting patiently for your prey to relax, slip unaware. You strike suddenly, mercilessly, unapologetic. You slink away, feigning innocence, fangs coated with blood and venom. These are kind of COVID inspired, I guess. Returning in dreams to places so familiar I can move about blindfolded, yet in that darkness of dreams or blindness, they're not so much changed but morphed into a multitude of places never been. Not as magical as Narnia, but as real as my hand, there are smells and textures of long ago that may have existed only in dreams or memory of someone else's lost childhood. How will I ever be sure of where I am if I don't know where I've been? No rest for the wicked. Drowning, clawing for air, the body struggles for sleep, tangled and twisted in the steady progress of red numbers tallied by the digital clock. The mind weaves down the inner shoulder of a highway, trying to avoid buried landmines, scattered debris, and speeding taillights. Hours pass until dawn finally offers a glimpse of Morpheus after another long lost night. Another Murakami quote, words that aren't spoken are no longer words. He starts by saying, words need us. As they pound within my skull, trying to find their place upon the page, a rhythm in a stalled attempt to string them together. I have lived by that need, cradled it, trusted it, defined myself by it. What now if words are not words, but broken shells tossed upon long forgotten white sand shores, pecked at by seagulls as if they were a keyboard? So I began with Valletta Woodstock poems. This is this year's in this real, unreal gathering, but still inspiring. Oh, to see your faces, tiny squares of electronic impulses, confirm you are real, breathing entities of light, trying to touch the screen as if to really touch, allowed only to zoom back to years past when we hugged and laughed, spent evenings in a cocoon of knowing you are the ones who are my muses. You are among my dearest summer friends. Thank you.
Wow, that was amazing.
Thank you, Roz. Thank you, Nita.
Fabulous, fabulous.
Thank you. Donna, I hear your voice.
Thank you, Joyce.
My pleasure.
As usual, powerful.
Well, now we've got to hear yours.
Yeah, my poems are for the past 6 years or so been trying to put together a collection that focuses on jazz music. Or maybe if somebody warned me, I probably would have published a collection of sort of a more miscellaneous group of poetry. But I'm having fun, but it's moving slowly. I'm going to start by introducing myself somewhat with Papa's violin, which is, my father was a violinist, so you can learn something about my background and so on here, and developing early interest in music. Papa's violin. Dorset Village, Bastair, St. Kitts, Mother Colony, 1950s. A little boy listens to his papa's violin, a balm in Gilead, to a man of modest means, who performed at Moravian cantatas, a man with many mouths to feed, a boy remembers. Melodies still, strident, sweet. Songs the whole world sings. Sankey pieces. Handel. Memories. Minimal. Misty. A boy remembers. Papa bowed and plucked his heart out, night by night, after supper in the living room's retreat, till the clock hanging on the wall above restless pupil and rusty mahogany piano struck 10. In our home, there were 2 bells. The clock that punctuated the performance and the instrument mother sounded to summon us to supper at 7. Sometimes mother also sang the blues. Heaven is home to me. His eye is on the sparrow. Her silky soprano voice quivering like the strings of Papa's violin. And now we have a somewhat different poem, still on the theme of music, jazz, Christmas Blues. This poem is dedicated to Eric Reed, the famous jazz pianist. Whenever I get home, I either turn on the news or listen to jazz standards on TV. Today, the TV screen hisses at me. You'll be miserable. I do not want to mingle with Chris Pringle or the Damned. So I switch to the McDonough Awards, where I watch a defiant diva define herself like a freedom fighter. A soldier who disses the media-driven prescription, Salem crucibles for women who march to their own drums. Women proud to walk in Maya's footsteps. Women proud to honor Jimmy Baldwin. All those talented, tainted souls who yearn to win our love, but not as a 4-letter word. From the Pope to the hellfire and brimstone high-strung, cotton comes to Harlem, pulpit rocking pushers of greed and rape of the weak. Cringing at pagan altars of shrugging atlases, attached like emails to the casinos of Capitol Hill conspiracies, where the winning media mafia take us like the children who followed the Pied Piper to the river. Madonna chose her name to make a point. She speaks for women who rock the halls from Broadway to Hollywood, strutting their individual enigmas. Women who mourn like Mahalia, women who scat like Ella, women who, like Lady Day, remember strange fruit and sigh for all mothers, women who make up their hair, women who mask their face, women with rugged runaway swagger. The third poem I'm going to share with you pays tribute to the artist resistance movement in Haiti just after the the earthquake in 2010, Haitian artists, most of them obviously poor, did something quite, astonishing. They picked up all of the car parts, motorcycle parts, parts of trucks, old metal, rubber, and they began to create art, sculpture. In a number of months, some of those pieces ended up in the leading museums in Paris, in Vienna, other parts of Germany, in London, in Italy, and in Holland. So this is it, Haitian Picassos, tribute to the artist resistance movement. After the earthquake, Ogun, patron saint of the sword and showcase, field marshal of metal workers, inspects adjacent junkyards at four corners, appoints apprentices to mold scrap iron into museum masterpieces destined for Paris. Human skulls wear spikes for crowns. Columns of tailpipes line up next to car engines dressed in dirt and diesel. Rusty springs, spinal columns of custom-made mattresses once quilted and crafted for the well-to-do stand tall, tattered, in carnival costumes and cloth, swaying to cadence music, marking time at the crossroads. And this poem is dedicated to Derek Walcott, who I got to know fairly well when he was at the University of Virgin Islands in 1979. He took part in one of his plays, Marie Laveau, as the world premiere musical in December of that year, 1979. Walcott, as we all know, died about 3-4 years ago. For Derek Walcott, the gods are lonely. The gods create poets to sing their praise, ritual paeans to the natural universe. The gods create poets to possess the unspoken world with words, nouns, and verbs summoned at the end of an age. To begin a new Adamic dawn, drafting prayers like a scribal Methodist matriarch, giving birth to a painting, a culture, uttering pronouncement in the name of a people's patois. Elemental man and woman, neither patrician nor peon, devoted to the daily duty of their carpentry, courtesying counterpoint to Kamau's uncle, Ogun's craftsmen, carpenters, and carvers of wood, casting nets all day, all night, like timed staccato mantras, often taking nothing for their toils, like pundits exiled in snow, losing faith in the folk, pronouncing that island cultures can catch nothing, can create nothing, no Carnegie Hall concertos from converted oil cans, panning for poetry in Naipaul's desert of despair, Walcott spread his net for half a century. Some Catholics go to Mass at 6. Walcott awoke at 4 to mix and measure his meters, casting his quill on canvas like a fisherman's net on water, into a wasteland of words, frozen like Brodsky's forests. Daily he tarried at his task, breaking poems like bread from hand to mouth with Brodsky, sailing like Odysseus from Vigy to Mona, Port of Spain, and the Virgins. Ablaze with the hybrid fire of Ogun and Vulcan, his divine devotion driving him daily like hammer to anvil, like painter to palette, the poet approaches his parchment. Approaching the eve of another era, Walcott wept, bearing aloft his burden of Nobel laurels in honor of family and fictive kin. Alex, Harold, Gregorius, and St. Lucia, the Helen of his islands. And this is a poem that's familiar to some of you who are present when I read it. I think it was in Kingston when we were there about 5-6 years ago. The title of this poem is Moonstruck. It doesn't matter if you can't see Chappie's 1985 Mustang, wine-colored, gold bucket seats, silver-trimmed rims that sparkle miniature galaxies in your eyes, scintillating like balls of fire, like a preacher peddling glimpses of paradise. He can make you a believer. See it right there? Fancy fenders, white wall tires, diamond in the back. His voice converts to an 8-cylinder engine that shudders like an exhaust as he shifts gears. Just fancy Chappie, hypnotic, looking cool, making a right onto Main Street, arms arched. His hands a couple of competing C's, replacing each other in slow motion. His elastic body and head retroflex, shifting a stick to fourth on the Veterans Drive. Whizzing past Cancrine School, past Gottlieb's gas station, chasing after the sunset. Can you see him? Just fancy Chappie, hip, hypnotic, parking between a beetle and a bug. Evidently the most cool. Reversing, head over right shoulder, one hand turning as if polishing a dream. And there's Lilith, wondering what makes a man tick? Wishing for a one-way trip to the stars. We, the faithful, never said he was crazy, bird-brained, deluded. All he wants from Christmas to Christmas, a car, a girl, a community of believers. That's it.
Vincent, this is why we miss you.
Me too. We
We
miss
should
you as
all
well.
unmute, we should all unmute and
Oh, thank you, Vincent. Yay.
Thank you, Vincent.
Thank you,
Vincent, come back to Woodstock next year.
Okay,
Yay.
They were all great readings.
I'll come
Thank
back
you.
Beautiful.
wearing my mask. No, I think by then it will not be any longer necessary. The capitalists would have made their millions and things will be back to normal.
From your lips to God's ear.
Right?
Indeed.
Indeed.
Yeah, but bring a mask anyway. I want to see what an island mask looks like.
Oh no, this mask is one of the expensive masks that doctors are supposed to use. I got the most expensive one.
Oh,
Well, I'm serious about my health. And I'm in the danger group, you know.
You can,
I'm over 70, at risk.
yeah.
not possible. Not possible that you're over 70.
Have a lot of company in that age group, Vincent.
No kidding.
I'll soon be 73, December.
I'm older than you are.
I'm older than you, Vincent. I'm lots older than you.
I'm not complaining.
Well, may you live to 190.
Once I'm healthy, I don't mind.
Yeah.
Same to you. So you can write, you know, more volumes of poetry.
Okay, I'm going to turn off the recording.